Hi everyone. When doing your maintenance on your motorcycle, there are things that need to be done every so often. This includes replacing your air filter element, changing out your spark plugs, checking the coils, etc. And in order to do these things, you need to remove your gas tank. Now, some people will try to do their air cleaner element or spark plugs by just undoing the front bolts in the tank and lifting it up. You can do this. I do not recommend it, and not even the service manual recommends it. And the reason for this is you can actually break the little nozzle at the end of your fuel pump that the fuel line connects to. So it's just best to actually remove the fuel tank. So we are going to go ahead and go through that process today. In order to remove your gas tank, you're going to need a couple things. You're going to need a gas can to store the gas that you have in the tank. You're going to need some way to get the gas out of your gas tank. That can be any kind of pump that's designed for gasoline. Don't use a kerosene one. You could siphon it with a hose. You can use a gas transfer pump like I am going to use. You're going to need a pair of small pliers. You're going to need a hook tool or some kind of tool or way to get a rubber hose that might be stuck on a fitting off. You're going to need an 8mm socket. You're going to need a 5mm hex socket. You will need a socket wrench. And preferably you will need an extension to avoid damaging your gas tank. Okay, before we get to removing our gas tank, you need to remove the rear pylon seat. You need to remove the front seat or saddle. I do have a video on how to do this. It is just 2 bolts, pretty straightforward. You also need to remove your upper fairings on both sides, which I also have a video for. And you need to remove your side covers on both sides, which I have a video for that as well. So rather than waste your time with removing all those, since I already have videos, we're just going to... Okay, so the first thing you need to do is drain your tank. This, of course, eliminates spillage, but you do not want to be carrying a gas tank full of gas around because it will unbalance and you could drop it, but also because of spillage. Now, you are dealing with gasoline, so please be safe. Do not have any open sparks, any open flames, anything that could go kaboom. Now, to siphon the gas out of the gas tank, you can do different methods. You can use a traditional siphon pump where you squeeze the bulb and it starts to siphon and then siphon it into a gas can. You can use a hose. You can suck on it to get it started if you want to risk potentially getting gas in your mouth. Or you could actually push the hose down into the tank, seal the other end with your thumb, draw it up so there's enough gas to start a siphon, put it down to the gas can. Or you can even use a gas pump, which is what I'm going to be using. Now, make sure you have a gasoline can or something that is approved for gasoline storage. You don't want the gas to eat anything. And since you're probably going to be putting it back in your motorcycle, you don't want any kind of contaminants in there. So let's go ahead and siphon our tank out. So as you'd probably imagine, you're going to need to open your gas tank. Now my pump runs off of a 12-volt DC socket, which I have installed on my motorcycle, so I'm actually going to use that to power it, which means I need to turn the ignition on. So I'm going to take my gas can, open it up, stick the output end of my hose in, then stick the input hose into the tank and turn it on. And we are going to siphon until it's all the way empty. Now I can tell you there's no way to get all of the gas out, so there's going to be a little bit left. That's okay. We just want to get most of it out. So we're going to go ahead and shut off the pump. And we're going to go ahead and clean this up and we'll be right back. The next step, and I'm going to try and do this so you can see it. First of all, I still have my wiring mess. I apologize. Someday I will get to actually cleaning this up. But until then, we are after this green connector. This green wire here, this is your fuel pump line. It's your power source. We need to disconnect that. And I'm going to try and do this without getting too much in your way. But there's a tab. You're going to push it away from the wiring, and that'll release it, and then you pull it out of the socket. just like that. Now I'm gonna reposition the camera here a little bit, down to where you still can't see anything. And down here, if I get these wires out of the way, you'll see this clamp. You need to free it from the clamp. That's just a matter of lifting the open side up and pulling the wire out of it. And there, it's released. Okay, so the next step is you need to remove the breather hose. Now, to do that, you got to remove this clamp. Now, you could probably just squeeze it together with your fingers and move it, or you could just use a pair of pliers. And you want to get the clamp over the nozzle. There we go. Now, you can go towards the tank, but you do risk scratching your tank, so I don't recommend that. Now comes the really irritating part, and that's getting the rubber hose off. Okay, so this is probably the worst part of the entire process, and that's this rubber hose sticks to the barb that comes out of the gas tank. There is no clear-cut way to do this. You can use heat. I don't recommend it around a gas tank. You can use pliers, but you'll probably destroy the rubber hose. I'm going to try and use one of these little hook tools and work my way under. And I'm using this rag here to try and protect the gas tank from scratches. But try and run it along the barb, and all you want to do is separate the hose from the metal because it sticks. Work your way under and around. You should be able to get it unstuck. There we go. Just push it off. There we go. All right, so that's your breather hose. The next step is removing the bolts. So we're going to go ahead and remove these two bolts first. Okay, the next step is to remove the front bolts from the gas tank. This uses a 5mm socket, and you're probably going to want an extension so you don't hit your gas tank. Be careful you don't drop the bolts. Okay, now the next step, we're going to have to get underneath the tank. So I'm going to go ahead and move the camera. Okay, this may be easier if you have two people, but if you don't, I'm by myself, so you want to make sure your gas tank stays open, okay? Now that's to reduce any pressure. It reduces the pressure in the tank. Even though you emptied the gas, there's still a little in there, and it will put it under pressure. Pressure will push fuel out and create a mess. Now, you want to be careful of these plastic pieces when you lift the tank, but carefully lift the tank from the front, and it'll pop off. You want to be careful as you lift it. Your fuel pump is down here. Up under here is a hose, and it's in these clamps. You can bend the clamps just a little bit and feed the hose out of the clamps. And then there's a very, very small clamp up here. Take your pliers, try and squeeze the clamp together and move it up toward the tank. And once it's off, pull the hose, but be careful you don't lose the clamp. It's going to come off with it. Okay, for this next step, I'll go ahead and show you what I did here. I have bungee cords attached to my tank. Make sure you don't pull it up too tight, but that's because I'm one person and I've got to get in here to this connection. And this is the connection you can break if you mess with your tank too much. So the first thing you want to do is you want to lay down some rags to catch fuel, because fuel will come out. So just get some rags down here. Now, the way this connector works is you want to basically pry up on both sides of the bottom of it. The bottom is towards the rear, and push down in the middle of the top to release it. Let me try and do it from the other side so you can see. So push down, so push up both sides of this reddish clip. And there you go. Lifts out. And then you pull the fuel line, and this is when fuel's going to come out. but hopefully not too much. Now, pull your electrical connection through. All right, when you set your gas tank down, you want to make sure it doesn't set on your fuel feed here. So make sure it doesn't set on your fuel feed. Undo your bungee cord if you used a bungee cord. Hopefully you had a set of helping hands. Then carefully, what I like to do is I put my finger on the fuel outlet so no fuel drips. Lift the tank off. So what I did here is I just had this old drain pan and I set it up so it's not sitting on the nozzle or the fitting, and just have the tank resting on my carpet. And then it's safe there while you do the rest of your work. You can go ahead and close the cap now. Of course, you're gonna need your key for that. Then I'll take a rag. You can use a baggie, it'd probably be better. But a rag will do, and cover the nozzle so nothing gets in to your tank there. And that's all there is for that. So that's how you remove your tank. Now we get to put it back on. Okay, now to reinstall your gas tank, you want to carefully bring it over, just kind of line it up, you set it down. I find it is easiest to go ahead and put the 2 bolts in the back piece. Remember, that's your 8mm socket, and make sure you're not pinching anything or crimped on anything. You just want to start the bolts. Because right now the hose line's in the way and we are hooked up. But this will allow us to just lift the tank. So what this does is it allows us to lift the tank to get underneath to hook up the other lines. Now, make sure your breather hose is out. Don't hook it up yet. Just make sure it's out. And I'm going to go ahead and reposition the cameras. So we're going to lift the tank and you're going to want to hook up the fuel line. All you need to do is feed it back on, slide it in, and you pop the clip down. That's all it takes. Now, just be careful as you lift that you don't rip anything. And we're gonna go and do the other hose. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the clamp and put it on the hose, and I'm actually gonna put it right where it was. Then you're gonna lift the tank and pop it on. And then don't forget to feed the hose into the 2 metal tabs and bend them back. You're gonna set your tank down, make sure the plastic piece is on top of it. You're going to make sure nothing's pinching, that your tank sets down all the way. And you can go ahead and put the 2 front bolts in, get them started. And we're gonna give them back to the back bolts. We're gonna tighten them down. Remember, these are 8mm socket. They need to be snug, don't over tighten. And then we're gonna go ahead and hook up our electrical. So now we need to hook up our wire. We need to get it through the wire holder, which mine's very difficult because I got all these extra wires in here. Should be able to just push it into the clamp, get it all the way in there so that the catch piece will hold it, and hook and plug it back in. Make sure you hear it click. And then, you know, give it a little pull, make sure it doesn't come out, make sure it's clicked in good. And that's all there is to it. Step is to hook up your breather hose. Now I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna put the clamp right where it was. Now what I like to do on this is I like to get a little WD-40. And that just makes it easier to slide on. Won't hurt anything. Get the clamp lined up where it was and just start pushing it on. Squeeze the clamp as you get over the nip and make sure you get it on all the way. There you go. Okay, now that you have everything in the back buttoned up, go ahead and take your 5mm hex socket and tighten down these front tank bolts. Okay, close the gas cap. And then go ahead, turn on the bike, make sure it's on so the fuel pump primes. Then go ahead and see if it'll start. So that's all there is to taking off your fuel tank and putting it back on. Remember to check for any leaks, smells of any gas, and make sure everything is good to go. Then you can put the rest of your panels on and go out and ride. If you have any questions, please let me know. Stay safe and keep the rubber side down.
Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I will try and answer everyone's questions as soon as possible. If there's anything you would like to see, any tips, tricks, techniques, anything at all motorcycle related, please let me know. I do these videos for you, so anything that you would like to see, I am more than happy to do it. If you like this video, please click that thumbs up button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and click the bell to notify you whenever a new video drops. Thank you again. Ride safe and keep the rubber side down.